What's up, guys? Hope you're having an awesome afternoon. What I wanted to do today is look at a really important skill that we use in reading, and that is inferencing. And so what we're going to do is look at what an inference is and the definition, and then we'll look at a couple of examples of an inference really quickly. So what is an inference? An inference is essentially figuring out something that's not told to you. So it's kind of taking the clues and taking what you already know and coming up with some information that the author doesn't give you. We make inferences all the time, and authors want you to make inferences because if they told you everything, then it would just be boring. They want you to figure things out on your own, and so that's what an inference is. I do want to note you might see inferences also called drawing conclusions. If a question asks you to draw a conclusion, all they're asking you to do is make an inference. Those are the exact same things. So it might tell you to make an inference, or it might say draw a conclusion. Those are both the exact same thing. That's figuring out something that's not told to you. So how do you make an inference? Well, in order to make an inference, there are two parts. And they're both important parts, and they're both things that you do all the time. But the first part of an inference is using your background knowledge. In other words, it's things that you already know. The fancy word that we call background knowledge is schema, but all schema is things that you already know. For example, let's say you're reading an article about the lake. Well, maybe you've been to the lake before and gone tubing or hung out at the lake, and so you already know some things about the lake. Or maybe the article is about going to a theme park. Well, maybe you've already been to a theme park before, you've been to Carowinds or Disney World or something like that. And so you already know some things about going to a theme park, like waiting in line and rides and that kind of thing. So the first thing that you want to think about are the things that you already know. And then the second part of an inference are the clues, the evidence, the clues and the evidence that the author gives you. So they might tell you, oh, we waited in long lines in the hot sun to get on a ride. And because you've already been to a theme park before and know that those things happen, then you could infer that they're talking about a theme park. And so whenever you want to make an inference, what you have to do is you have to take what you already know and look at the clues that the author gives you and figure something out. That's what an inference is. That's what drawing a conclusion is. So let's look at a couple of examples really quickly. So here's the first one, and I'll read it to you. It says, one of the rarest animals in the world is the okapi. They live in the rainforest in Central Africa. Few people have seen one alive. Every few years someone claims to see one, but they never have proof. A few years ago, some scientists who were studying plants found a skeleton, teeth, and some skin in a remote area of the rainforest. They were excited, as they believed they had found the remains of a rare okapi. They drew a picture of what they thought the animal might have looked like when it was alive. The scientists then sent the picture, along with the skeleton, teeth, and skin, to a scientific institution in Dallas, Texas. So that's the passage. And so the inference question is, what did the scientists probably do with the skeleton, teeth, and bones? Okay, so when we look at our choices, they are A, they sent them to a place with more experienced scientists. B, they kept them for souvenirs. C, they studied them carefully and compared them to other animals. Or D, they sold them to museums that displayed them. So when you think about it, the tough part about an inference question is a lot of times all of the answers can be right, or they could seem right. So what you have to do is you have to really use what you already know, and you have to look back at the evidence and find the best answer. And that's what makes inferencing tough, is you have to find the best answer. So when we look at these answer choices, what did the scientists probably do with the skeleton, the teeth, and the bones? And so we have sent them to a place with more experienced scientists, kept them for souvenirs, studied them carefully and compared them to other animals, or sold them to museums that displayed them. When I read through those answer choices, my mind automatically, an alarm goes off in my head about one of them that I know is not right. And so I know that they didn't just keep them as souvenirs. Well, how do I know that? Because I already have some background knowledge about scientists, and scientists wouldn't just keep things for souvenirs. They would want to study them and that kind of thing. And so I know B is wrong. So I have sent them to a place with more experienced scientists. studied them carefully and compared them to other animals, or sold them to museums that displayed them. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at some clues in the text. And so if I'm looking for some clues in the text, it says right here that some scientists who were studying, they found the plants of the skeleton, and it says they were really excited because they thought they had found the remains. Then they drew a picture of what they thought the animal might have looked like, and then they sent the picture along with the skeleton teeth and skin to a scientific institution. So I'm going back and looking for clues about what the scientists did. Okay, so when I look at A, they sent them to a place with more experienced scientists. It does say that they sent the bones somewhere else, so I'm going to keep that one. C, they studied them carefully and compared them to other animals. Well, it does talk about that they were excited and they looked at them and they drew a picture, so that could be it. Or D, sold them to museums that displayed them. Well, I know it doesn't say anywhere, there's no evidence in the passage that they sold them to a museum, so I can get rid of D, right? So now I have A and C. And A and C both sound like really good answers, right? They sent them to a place with more experienced scientists, or they studied them carefully and compared them to other animals. So let me go back to the text. And when I go back to the text, what really jumps out at me is this last part where it says they sent the picture along with the skeleton and the skin to a scientific institution in Dallas, Texas. So, because I know they sent them somewhere, and because my background knowledge tells me that if I don't know a lot about something, I might send it to somebody else who does know more, because this is a really rare animal and they want to learn as much as possible, the best answer for this one would be A. They sent them to a place with more experienced scientists. Okay, so when you're making an inference, you have to take what you know and you have to look back at the evidence in the text and really come up with the best answer. And like I said, sometimes it can be tricky because more than one can seem right. You have to come up with the best answer. Okay, let's look at one more example really quickly. It says, pretend you're at a grocery store. As you're walking down the cookie aisle, you notice a little girl crying and pulling on her mom's coat as she pushes the cart toward the front of the store. The closer she gets to the front of the store, the louder the little girl screams. It says lots of things could be wrong with the little girl, but we can probably conclude what? So we're going to draw a conclusion. What's wrong with this little girl? And our answer choices are, the little girl's very tired, the little girl's hungry, she wants cookies and her mom said no, or she wants her father. Again, all four of those answer choices could be right. They sound realistic. All four of those could be something that's wrong with the little girl. And our background knowledge probably tells us that there's a little child who's tired or hungry or wants something, or they want their father, they could be crying, right? So we might have some experience with that. So we got to go back and look at the evidence in the text. Okay, the first thing that sticks out to me is that we're at a grocery store. And not only are we at a grocery store, but we're looking at the cookie aisle, right? We're down the cookie aisle. And then as we go down the cookie aisle, we see the little girl crying and she's pulling on her mom's coat. But what's the mom doing? The mom is walking towards the front of the store. Okay? And so the closer she gets, the louder the girl screams. And so based off of that evidence, because we're in a grocery store and we saw her on the cookie aisle and the mom is walking away from the cookie aisle, the best answer, the best inference for this question would be C. She wants the cookies and her mom said no. So that's it when it comes to inferencing. You really have to think about what you already know. You have to really look back at the clues that are given to you in the passage, and you have to come up with the best answer. Even though sometimes more than one can seem right, we're looking for the best answer when it comes to making an inference or drawing a conclusion. Hope this helps you. Hope you have an awesome evening. We'll see you soon.